Welcome everyone to this press conference with Ms. Oleksandra Matviichuk. My name is Amoke Bebiak. I'm the head of communications for Right Livelihood, and it is my absolute honor to welcome Ms. Oleksandra Matviichuk, the chairwoman of the Center for Civil Liberties here with us in Stockholm. She is receiving the 2022 Right Livelihood Award later tonight. This press conference is to give you an update on what is happening in Ukraine. She will make some opening remarks, and then we will open up the floor for questions. This press conference is recorded, and I will be happy to share the recording with you afterwards. So please reach out to me or to your contact at Right Livelihood. So Ms. Matviichuk, with increased Russian attacks on Ukraine's infrastructure, as we're going into the winter, what is the situation like on the ground, and what support should the international community provide?
Russia used terroristic tactics to destroy the critical civil infrastructure in Ukraine in order to deprive millions of people from electricity, light, heat, water, and as a result, a mobile and internet connection during the winter. Each hitting to civil objects is a war crime, but we have reached a point when Russians publicly discussed on TV how better to destroy their critical civil infrastructure and make Ukrainians to be frozen during the winter. Situation is very difficult. I have a privilege to arrive to Stockholm, but before it, I spent several days without light, without heat, without electricity in my home. And winter in Ukraine is very cold, so we expecting a very hard time. The Russian shelling regularly continues. Each week we have a new attack. I have no doubt that Ukrainians will endure, but we need support from international community to survive during this winter. And this support need to be in different dimensions. We need to close our sky and protect our cities through against this barbaristic Russian attack. And in order to do it, we need air defense systems and other military facilities to be able to close the sky from Russian rockets. And also we need humanitarian assistance, which can provide creative solutions how to preserve electricity, heat, and light in homes of millions of Ukrainians during this winter.
Thank you. And of course, you mentioned the Russian attacks. You and your organization have recorded 24,000 instances of war crimes. What are the chances that perpetrators will be held accountable?
It's a very right questions to be asked because, yes, we have recorded jointly in our Tribunal for Putin initiative 24,000 of cases. And this enormous amount, but it's still only a tip of iceberg. And the question is, for whom do we document all of this for? Because national legal system is overloaded with an extreme amount of crimes. And International Criminal Court limit its investigation only to several select cases. So we need to develop the complex justice strategy to provide justice to each victims of this war. What I notice that the war turned people into the numbers, and even I myself start to speak more with numbers than with names, because the scale of war crimes grows so large that it's become impossible to recognize all the stories, and only justice can return people their name. And we have to provide justice for all victims, not only for those who will be lucky to be selected by International Criminal Court, for all victims, which means without additional priorities, regardless of who they are, what type of crime they endured, what's their social position, and whether or not media, international organizations, on society in general are interested in their case. Because I do believe that life of each person matters. And this complex justice strategy, which we have to elaborate in order to reach this goal, have to have several elements. How to increase the potential of international criminal court, how to make stronger our national legal system, how to use a possibility of new emerged institutions like joint investigative team and others to preserve evidence not in their countries, but in Ukraine, where the crimes are committed, how to use the provisions of universal jurisdictions in other countries, and also how to create international tribunal and hold Putin, Lukashenko, and other Russian war criminals accountable. And this is essential not only for Ukrainians, because Russian soldiers committing war crimes for decades in Chechnya, in Moldova, in Mali, in Georgia, in Syria, in Libya, in other countries of the world. And they enjoyed impunity. They have never been punished for this. And all this hell, which we're now going through in Ukraine, is a result of situation that because of this impunity, Russians start to believe they can do whatever they want. We must break the circle of impunity. We must establish international tribunal and hold war criminals accountable.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to open up the floor for questions. There are two ways you can ask a question. You can either raise your hand and I will open your mic and you can ask a question, and please state your name and your media outlet. Or you can use the Q&A function to type in a question. And again, please add your media outlet so that we know who you are. And maybe while we're still waiting for some questions, of course, the Center for Civil Liberties is also a recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. And over the past months, partly due to the Right Livelihood Award, but of course also to the Nobel Peace Prize, you have received a lot of publicity, and you have been speaking out about what's happening in Ukraine to people all over the world. What changes have you seen? Have you noticed any shifts as now your work is being so widely talked about and discussed? Especially in terms of the accountability question.
I and my team have been documenting war crimes for 8 years already. And because this war started not in February 2022, but in February 2014. This war started when, after Revolution of Dignity, authoritarian regime in Ukraine was collapsed, and we obtained a chance for a quick democratic transformations. And in order to stop us on this way, Putin started this war, occupied Crimea, part of the Lugansk and Donetsk region. And we have a special focus on cases of legal practice of detention, torture, sexual violence, and killing civilians in occupied territories, as well as politically motivated criminal prosecutions. And I personally interviewed hundreds of people who survived captivity, and they told me horrible stories. They described how they were beaten, how they were raped, how they were smashed into wooden boxes, how their fingers were cut, how they were tortured with electricity, how their nails were torn away, their nails were drilled, how they were compelled to write something with their own blood, and other kind of cruel treatment. And we sent numerous reports to UN, to OSCE, to Council of Europe, to EU, but nothing stops. And this practice is still going on for 8 years already. And this is a visible example that we have a huge problem with international system of peace and security. It's illusion that we have it, because now we live in a world where the UN member of UN Security Council started a war 8 years ago, conducted it, and now organized a large-scale invasion and committed numerous atrocities, but there is no tool how to stop it. And the whole UN system couldn't provide me, as a human rights defender, a possibility to release even one single civilian from Russian captivity. And this situation has to be changed, because it's a dangerous world not only for Ukrainians to live in, but for the other nations in the world. Because now we have a world where your security and your human rights guarantee are dependent on whether or not you live in a country which belong to some military blocs or have a huge military potential. And this is a not right development of the humanity, because it means that if we not change it, if we not manage to establish an effective international system of peace and security, which can bring perpetrators to justice and push states to be in line with international law, it means that we will have as a country, no possibility to invest money in fields which we need to invest, because I do believe that human beings have to invest money in education, in development, in some social things like fighting with injustice or solving complex problems like climate change, but not in weapons. But now we are in a situation where this international system does not work, and I hope that it's temporary, that we will manage to fix it, that we will take as a humankind a historical responsibility and start a complex reform of this international architecture of peace and security. And I do believe that the first step has to be the exclusion of Russia from UN Security Council for a systematic violation of UN Chapter.
Thank you. And we have a question from Stefan Trumpf from the German press agency DPA. One question from his side. Have the announcements that you and the Center for Civil Liberties received both the Right Livelihood Award and the Nobel Peace Prize facilitated your work on the ground, or has it become more difficult because of the attention the prizes bring with them?
For decades, the voice of human rights defenders from our region wasn't heard. Maybe we was heard in HDM OSCE or in UN Committee on Human Rights, but not in Security Council, not in the rooms where decision will take place. And this led to a situation which we have current moment, because connection between human rights and peace is inextricable. And because state which systematically violates human rights obligations is threat not only to their own citizens, but to the whole region. And Russia is a vivid example that we have no effort to ourselves to do business as usual with authoritarian regimes. We have to react for systematic violation of human rights, because sooner or later the evil will grow and situation become more worse. So now we have this unique opportunity to be heard, and we will use it because we believe in what we are doing. As a team of Center for Civil Liberties for 15 years, we're fighting for human rights and human dignity, not because of a word, but because we believe in what we are doing. But now these prizes, these awards, make our voice more tangible. And yes, we are a human rights organization, and we wasn't prepared for such a level of attention. It's a hard for us, because we have to combine it with our constant work, which is not stopped, because we received all these awards during the war, and during the very bloody war, where Russia uses war crimes as a methods of warfare and try to break people resistance and occupy the country by immense pain of civilian population. But I do believe that we will cope and we will use these unique opportunities which provide us these awards.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Yes. Oh, no. We have a thank you from Stefan. Do we have any more questions from floor? If not, then maybe, Oleksandra, we could end with, what is your message to people around the world? What would you like them to think about as we're going to the end of this year and soon approaching the 1-year anniversary of Russia's full-scale military invasion of Ukraine?
Today is 30th of November, and it's anniversary of civil initiative Euromaidan SOS, which I created together with my team 9 years ago. We created Euromaidan SOS as a response of brutal dispersal of peaceful student demonstration on Maidan Square. And we united several thousands of people. We worked 24 hours a day and provided legal assistance to persecuted protesters throughout the country. We, like every day, hundreds of people who were beaten, who were arrested, who were tortured, who were accused in fabricated criminal or administrative charges passed through our care. So that times Ukrainian people fighting for our democratic choice, just for a chance to build and to live in a country where the rights of everybody are protected, government is independent and accountable, the judiciary can provide justice, and police do not beat peaceful student demonstrations, and we paid a high price for this possibility. And for that moment, we face with a whole state repressive machine, because paramilitary groups Titushki cooperated with prosecutors. Prosecutors were in line with courts. The former president, former government, and majority of parliament were against us. They want to liquidate peaceful protests, even physically. And it was very easy to say what we can do as a human beings, because like we are faced with a authoritarian state machine, and the whole institution we have to protect human rights now violate human rights. But because our people continue their struggle and fight very honestly for each persecuted protesters, for each procedure measures, like the law exists, we started to work not on legal, but on symbolical level. What do I mean? That everybody in Euromaidan know that there is no guarantees. You can be beaten, you can be arrested, you can even be killed, but there are people who will fight for you, who will never left you alone. And this understanding provides protesters the forces to overcome the fear. And this was our important input into the revolution of dignity, which resulted of collapse of authoritarian regime and opened a way for European integration for Ukraine. So why I remember the story and on this symbolical day for us, because this story is about people. It's about struggle, which sometimes can seem that they have no senses in their efforts because they face with enormous challenges. But this story is about that we have to continue our struggle, and the result unexpectedly be achieved, because common people have a much more impact than they even can imagine, and massive mobilization of common people can make the world history and change of this world history quicker than UN intervention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oleksandra. If we do not have any more questions, Just a reminder that this press conference was recorded, and I'm very happy to share the recording with you. I am now sending my email address into the chat, but you can also reach out to your contact at the foundation. Thank you very much for taking part in this press conference. As a reminder, the award presentation is happening at 7:30 Central European time tonight. So those of you who are not in Stockholm, you can follow it live on our website. Thank you very much and have a good day. Bye-bye.